Alrighty, we are live.
Okay, we are live. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom, shalom.
Okay, Lauren, let's give, since some of the people are Israeli and they're probably being fashionably late, let's give people 30 more seconds
Great.
and show everyone the Tennessee view behind you.
Oh, yes, I am broadcasting
Entertain the people.
live from a farm. It's peak humidity. It might actually rain behind me. And if you hear some wind chimes, that's part of it too. I am locked out of a cabin, but never. I think I'll just pretend that this was plan A all along.
There you go. And I'm sweating to death here in Israel, but it's the summer, so that's the time to do it.
This is my way of
Okay,
experiencing what you're experiencing.
I'll do that. All right, I think we can start.
Great.
Lauren, give it a go.
Awesome. Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Hamrick. It's great to be with you. If you're in America, good afternoon. If you're in Israel, good evening. I want to begin by introducing We Walk Together, which is the organization that brings myself, Amit, and our guest Doug together today. So, We Walk Together is a group of patriotic Americans and Israelis who share a strong bond in the belief that the state of Israel, the Jewish people, the state of Israel deserves the right to exist. The Jewish people have a right to return, and the broader impact of Israel as a stronghold of Western values in the Middle East is of supreme importance and is a bulwark against radicalism abroad. Um, we provide educational resources that spans from online content to in-person lectures and tours of these famous and fabled sites in the state of Israel. And we seek to just be a general resource to everyone who's passionate about this issue. So we welcome you all. You can check us out at wwtworld.com. I will be your host and moderator today. And I'll introduce myself a little bit, and then I'll introduce my colleague Amit, and then our guest Doug, who will join us today. Um, I am launching as an influencer and an ambassador for We Walk Together. I've spent most of my career behind the camera, servicing high profile music artist careers and working with long running television shows like American Idol. And a writer at heart, I began using my words in speakers forums across universities and conferences, touching on topics of culture and current events. And as for many, after October 7th, everything changed. I saw my destiny as an American and as a Christian linked to that of Israel. And as my country very publicly and painfully interrogates the question of what's in our best interest, I see with precision clarity that we not only stand together in defense of a common raison d'etre, but also stand against common enemies, those that despise our most primary freedoms and liberties. And so I'm proud to maneuver my platforms and speak in the defense of my Israeli brothers and sisters, because never again is now. So it's just an incredible honor to be partnering with We Walk Together and further those online educational resources and lectures. I'd like to introduce my colleague Amit to my right here on screen. Amit is the head of We Walk Together, which is a Zionist organization dedicated to advocacy and education in the USA. Mead is a highly sought after speaker, frequently invited to lecture across the United States, sharing his extensive expertise and insights. Amit grew up in an agricultural village in Israel and continues to produce exceptional olive oil in the Judean lowlands. He serves as a reserve lieutenant colonel in the IDF with years of military experience. He holds two prestigious academic degrees, a bachelor's degree in history and international relations from the Hebrew University, and a master's in public policy from Tel Aviv University. Amit is also a devoted family man married with four children. Professionally, Amit excels as a tour guide, catering to Jewish and Christian audiences. He specializes in guiding VIP groups, politicians, and influencers, showcasing his expertise and ability to connect with diverse audiences. Additionally, Amit is a prolific writer, contributing to numerous books and articles that reflect his deep knowledge and insights. His compelling presence and expertise have led to interviews on television and podcasts, further amplifying his influence and reach. Amit's impressive credentials and multifaceted career make him a highly desirable speaker for lectures and events. So we'll begin today by Amit giving us a presentation, a la the headline, what really happened the last 2 weeks. But before that, I will also introduce preemptively our guest Doug, who will follow Amit. So Doug Hershey. Um, Whether writing or speaking, Doug Hershey shares from a perspective of a historian and a storyteller. His personal accounts of Israel, the Middle East, and the awakening of Bible prophecy are as intriguing as they are rare. In his best selling photo book, Israel Rising, Doug tracks 2,000 years of history's insurmountable history with over 100 then and now photo comparisons, all through the lens of the Bible prophecy and from over a decade of on the ground experience in Israel, the West Bank, and the Middle East. His follow up book, Jerusalem Rising, provides the most comprehensive then and now photo comparisons of Jerusalem to date, including the first ever recreations of some of the oldest photography of Jerusalem that has captured international attention. His new online course, 10 Prophecies Fulfilled in Your Lifetime, is a visually stunning and exciting addition to the series, where he reads specific prophecies and then shows you where it is now happening. Doug, lastly, is also the founder of Ezra Adventures, that specializes in small group travel to Israel and the Middle East. And that includes practical service teams to Israel during wartime. So for more, go to doughershey.co and Doug Hershey Author on Facebook and Instagram. So thank you very much for tuning in today. I'll now kick it to Amit and his presentation.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. Lauren, can you also, like we did last time, help me with the slides while I'm talking? So thank you. So shalom, everyone. And I see that a lot of people joined us this time. Thank you all for coming, or should I say switching your phones. I wish you could come to Israel, but you will shortly. And by the way, Lauren, you're going to be my first guided tour. That's within 2 weeks. So a lot happened and a lot changed in the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks actually. See here on the map the size of Israel versus the size of Iran. Google it later and you will see that Iran is a country 2.5 times bigger than the state of Texas, 70 times bigger than Israel. Yet, as you can see, size in this case does not matter, but faith, bravery, initiative, and a lot of courage. Lauren, let's move to the next slide. The Islamic Republic of Iran, and guys, I will say Iran just, shorter, but we are talking about the fight between Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran, okay, or the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. I'm not considering the people of Iran as our enemies, not at all, and they don't see us as enemies. But they have a horrific regime for the last 4 decades that dedicates, give or take, $500 billion so far to eradicate Israel, and they try to promote it, you can see here, by 2 ways. One, more famous one, is just by achieving nuclear weapons, and they literally said that they're going to use them against us. The other way was to flood the Middle East with different proxy armies like Hamas, Hezbollah, different Shiite groups in Syria, the Assad regime, militias in Iraq and in Yemen, and now they are active in other places as well, all to create an all-out assault on Israel and to eradicate the Jewish state by, let's call it, conventional warfare. Both ways ultimately should lead to the extermination of every living Jew in the state of Israel, including my 4 children. Lauren, let's move to the next slide. October 7 was a horrific Hamas surprise attack on Israel. Okay, you can see the infamous picture of the bulldozer. I personally know the pilot, by the way, who blew up that bulldozer later on that day, but it was too late. As you all know, Hamas committed atrocities on October 7, but they also broke the Iranian plan. Hamas attacked alone and therefore initiated the chain reaction that ultimately changed the Middle East the way we know it. Lauren, let's move on to the next slide. After 631 horrible days, Hamas is still alive. However, it was, or it is, I should say, just a pale shadow of its pre-war strength. They're no longer able to fire rockets or threaten the Israeli civilians. All they've been left with is some minimal guerrilla warfare from between the ruins, and unfortunately, they're still keeping the hostages. 20 of them are considered to be alive, and they still have a lot of terror tunnels, kindly subsidized by states like Iran and Qatar, and sometimes by what they call useful idiots from the West. So just for you to know, this month alone, in different skirmishes in Gaza, Israel lost 20 good people fighting Hamas. Okay, so the war there is definitely still going on. Lauren, let's move on. Hamas basically wanted to drag mighty Hezbollah, party of God from Lebanon, to join in the fight against us. It didn't went well. Hezbollah joined the war partly. They opened what they called supportive front, firing on Israeli border communities, harassing Israelis in the north of Israel, and they also made more than 80,000 Israelis refugees. However, this war didn't go well for Hezbollah. A year into the war, Israel started what we call Operation Beep Beep, or the pager attack. And you can see now, this is of course a joke, from the liver to the knee. You all heard what Israel did. According to external sources, it was Israel who did it, blowing up all the pagers of Hezbollah chain of command, basically. Then you can see on the lower right picture the hole that once was the command center of Hassan Nasrallah, the commander of Hezbollah. His successor was eliminated the next day. Basically, Hezbollah was decapitated. The upper left picture is my cousin. His name is Shai. That's a picture he took deep inside Lebanon as a reservist, as a paratrooper. And the war against Hezbollah went actually very well. And right now, Hezbollah, the most powerful militia Iran ever created, they spend more than 50 billion US dollars just subsidizing them, is basically now kind of like a dead walking man, something like that. They're paralyzed. They lost the will to fight. They still exist, however, but much more weak than they were before. All right, Lauren, let's move on. The fall of Hezbollah, as you all know, led soon enough to the fall of the Assad regime. You can see the picture of Assad with somebody's shoe on as an act of humiliation, a rival of Israel for the last 50 years. The Assad dictatorship is no more. Look carefully at the left picture. You can see what was left of an attack airplane of the former Syrian army. Israel didn't waste a second. And after Assad was gone, within 1 week, the Israeli Air Force basically destroyed almost all the heavy weapon systems in Syria. And it is very relevant to the war we just had with Iran. We cleared all the Syrian threat basically to Israeli jets, destroying all radar stations and each and every one of their infamous anti-aircraft missiles made in Russia. Let's move on, Lauren. Those dudes over here that you see with the yellow Shiite flags are the different militias that Iran sponsors in Iraq. But guess what? The Iraqi militias, seeing what's going on in Gaza, and then in Lebanon, and then in Syria, declared early in this war that Iran don't need their help, it's strong enough, which means that the allies of Iran basically forsaken Iran. And also in Iraq, there are no real aerial threats to the Israeli jets. So now imagine this, we have, Lauren, let's move on to the next slide. Israel basically had only one Iranian proxy left active against it right now. And those are the guys known as the Houthi rebels or the Houthi militia in Yemen. Those are the people that sunk a few commercial ships in the Red Sea. And no matter how much Israel, America, Saudi Arabia, and even the Europeans a little bit, believe it or not, bombed them for years, they're still around. And actually this morning they tried to fire a ballistic missile on Israel, but it was intercepted long before it arrived to Israel. But those Houthis guys cannot help Iran defend itself against Israel. All right, let's move on, Lauren. This is a picture I took from the IDF spokesman. You can see now the size and the distance between the Israelis and the Iranians. Okay, Iran is very large. It is 1,500 kilometers from Tehran to Israel. That means that a wave of jet fighters, and now it was revealed that Israel sent more than 200 of them in the first wave of attack, needs aerial refuel. And guess what? We have this capacity, and you can see also in this map that they were flying freely above the skies of Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, basically unopposed. Let's move on, Lauren. Why before we move on, why Israel attacked right now? What happened? Well, three things. One, Iran was in the middle of digging in very, very deep, like we all heard maybe about Fordo, this one facility where Iran was working on moving all its nuclear weapon systems, because let's face it, they were building the bomb. They wanted to go deep and protect them in bunkers so heavily protected in the mountains of Iran that nobody will be able to touch them. Second reason is the very rush advance of Iran toward achieving the bomb. And look at North Korea. Basically, when a dictatorship, a lunatic dictatorship, has the bomb, it's like an insurance policy. And also Israel figured out that Iran is building more and more heavy ballistic missiles, as we learned terribly, capable of doing horrific destruction and damage in Israel. And listen, Israel is a very small state, the size of New Jersey. A few waves of a few hundreds of missiles on strategic targets, and Israel will be basically hopeless. So the time to strike basically arrived. Also, there is something I did not write here, but don't forget, the conditions created by this war, basically free skies all the way from Israel to Iran itself. Let's move on, Lauren. Iran had a lot of time to test its horrific ballistic missiles and suicide drones. And they did it on the poor Ukrainian people. In the last 2 years, Iran basically flooded Russia with those weapons, and they made a lot of money out of it, but they also learned how to use them very well, and they even upgraded them. Let's move on, Lauren. So Israel was well aware that such a huge capacity of Iran to attack the rear, and we all know that they have the will to do it, and they have no morality whatsoever attacking civilians, we prepared very well. So here is now a fun fact that I am able finally to tell you. 2 corps of the Israeli armed forces knew about the coming attack of Israel. One was the Air Force that basically launched the attack, but the second corps was actually the Home Front Command. They mobilized all of us just before the attack actually started. As you can see here, 26 men and women were called at 2 in the morning of that Friday, and everyone reported in. 100% of the people joined, basically, except a few that were stuck abroad. And we actually gathered a lot of heavy engineering equipment, from bulldozers to trucks. God help me, we even concentrated hundreds of refrigerator trucks, because we thought that we're going to have to put a lot of bodies inside them. We prepared basically for a terrible war on the Israeli rear. The people in Israel were ordered to store food and water in the bomb shelters that we have just about everywhere, and basically to prepare for the worst. Let's move on. The Israeli assault was prepared for years, my friends. The Israeli Air Force, and I did it on purpose. I put a lot of pictures of the female pilots that joined the war, because just the thought that the Iranian regime will not allow women to walk around without a hijab, and now they've been humiliated by women flying above them, dropping bombs. Because a large percentage of the Israeli combat personnel of the Air Force, navigators and pilots alike, are female. We achieved amazing aerial supremacy. Within minutes, basically, almost all the active defense systems of Iran, those that survived previous skirmishes, were obliterated. And then came the turn of the ballistic missiles. And this is why Iran barely fired a single missile in the many hours after the attack. They were in a stage of shock. Also add the fact that many of their leaders and the chief of staff and the head of the Air Force and many others were eliminated, some of them in their own apartments with precision strikes. Iran was basically in a very bad shape when the war just started. Let's move on, Lauren. At the same time, while the Israeli Air Force was coming, that's what the foreign media says, Mossad agents started attacking Iran from inside Iran, which means that they infiltrated the state, built whole chains of abilities. Many of them will probably be kept in secret for the next 30 or 40 years. And those guys fired shoulder missiles inside Iran on different prime targets, especially radars. And just imagine this, they created a complete chaos in Iran. And the Iranians, until this very second, cannot trust anyone. They feel that the Mossad is everywhere. Soon enough, after the Iranian air defenses were basically paralyzed or destroyed, Israel moved to attack the missile systems threatening Israel, and then came the turn of the nuclear weapon factories. Let's move on, Lauren. The first thing that the Iranians tried to do as a retaliation was to fire drones. Those drones were actually decimated. Now it is, we are allowed to say that many of them were destroyed by a laser system. Okay, Google it later on and you will see there are a few videos of it now. Israel actually, it's like Star Wars, guys, cooked them up with laser beams on their way to Israel. Others were destroyed by old school systems like Iron Dome or just helicopters and airplanes. All right, let's move on to the next slide. The missiles that started flying into Israel after all, and they did fire a lot of them, almost 460 as far as we know, did more damage. Okay, a ballistic missile basically flies outside of the atmosphere in a speed of give or take 15,000 kilometers per hour. Let's try to translate it to American. That would be about 9,000 miles an hour. Okay, it is 15 times the speed of a jet airplane flying over. Very hard to attack, very hard to detect them, very hard also to catch them basically as they begin to descend down. When a few of those missiles managed to penetrate the Israeli unbelievable air and missile defense, some of them caused a lot of damage. Okay, and you can see now the numbers, 28 people were killed. All of them were civilians in their own apartments, basically. Despite the fact that the Israeli population was well briefed of what to do, sometimes when you're getting hit by 500 kilos of a warhead, you don't stand a chance, even if you are in your own bomb shelter in your apartment. Let's move on, Lauren. Those are a few pictures I took from 3 different sites that I visited myself. This one here, you can see me inside the ruins of a house. Of a synagogue that was empty because the rabbis were instructed not to allow anyone pray in those synagogues, and they did. It was actually the evening prayer time on that village. You can see also cars that were basically blown up by the explosion, and those cars are about 400 yards from the impact crater. So think about the power of that warhead. Let's move on, Lauren. This is even a war site. I grew up about 1 mile from this bunch of buildings in Rehovot. It's a nice city south of Tel Aviv. Some of you heard of, I'm sure many of you actually heard of the Weizmann Institute. The picture on the left is from the Cancer Search Laboratories of the Weizmann Institute. They got a direct hit over there, and a research of decades was lost, unfortunately. However, thankfully, not a single person was killed in Rehovot, thanks to the fact that everyone was in the bomb shelter when it happened. Lauren, let's move on. The worst scene of impact was Bat Yam. This is where we lost 9 innocent people. If I had the time, I would describe what I've seen there. Some of those sites will never leave me, okay? It's like a mini ground zero, if you wish. It was hit by a warhead of close to 1 ton, and instantly killed 9 people and injured many dozens of others. In this area alone, 20 large residential buildings will be completely demolished. Okay, from this scene alone, the Homefront Command had to evacuate about 1,300 people to what we call temporary housing. Some of them will be in temporary housing for probably many months. All right, let's move on. One of the biggest achievements of Israel, okay, now I know most of you are Americans, but I'm giving you the Israeli point of view here. The fact that America backed us up in this war is among our biggest achievements. Trump and his government realized that the Israelis are winning the war, and they wanted to join a victory, and they wanted also to help Israel finishing the job in this. You can see it here on the picture, on a site well dug inside a mountain called Furdu. Okay, in English you say Fordo, but it's in Farsi, Furdu. And 60 yards of concrete and rocks in some parts of this bunker complex basically shielded some of the most advanced nuclear weapon facilities Iran had. And only America had the bunker buster bombs, the mother of all bombs, you guys call it. And it was launched on this site. And now everybody is arguing how much damage was actually made. Well, disappointment for you, my friends, I don't know. Okay? But I can tell you one thing. If you will see who is reporting on the damage, you will see that it's all political. The media that likes Trump says that he destroyed all of it. The media that hates Trump says nothing happened. I don't think at this point even Iran can really assess the damage that happened there. It's just huge. Also, Israel bombed all the bridges and roads leading to that facility, so it will take time to know. But we will know. Let's move on. Well, for sure now, Iran is beaten, humiliated. They lost many of their abilities, especially the missiles. They lost most of their launchers, and those launchers are not Hamas little garden tube that you fire a rocket. Those are trucks that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each. And the question is what Iran is about to do now. 2 weeks into the war, basically Israel was stopped by its allies, especially America. We were told to stand back because the nuclear facilities and the Iranian ability to threaten Israel in the imminent future, in the immediate future, is no more. We are expecting now to see a lot of different activities of the Iranian regime. First of all, we are sure they are going to oppress the people of Iran horrifically because they are afraid of an uprising. And they're going to use a lot of terror on their own people. Lauren, let's move on. And this is what the Israeli army is preparing to. We are expecting Iran to use a variety of ways, not immediately, they will need some time, but in the foreseeable future, to continue to inflict damage to Iran's enemies, the little Satan, which is Israel, and the big Satan, which is America. Because don't forget, we didn't only defeat them, we humiliated them. And in the Middle East, honor is everything. So they might going to use a lot of cyber warfare. against Israeli or American or European infrastructure. They might going to use dirty bombs. You see the illustration I made in the center? They have a lot of enriched uranium that they prepared and collected. Much of it, of course, is destroyed, but a lot of it is hiding somewhere in this huge state. One of the biggest fears is that they will try to use a regular bomb and to put some of the enriched uranium with it, creating a dirty bomb, radioactive bomb. That's an act of terror, of course, and illegal by any international standard. You see the gentleman over there with the dress and the flag of Palestine? This is what We Walk Together is dealing with a lot. Basically, they're trying to make the West hate Israel no matter what. The concept of, like this gentleman over here, Queers for Palestine, is one of their biggest achievements, okay, of Iran, Qatar, and their allies. We are expecting them to continue misinformation campaigns against Americans in the foreseeable future, probably more than ever. The weapon shipments, the lower left picture is one of them, are expected to continue, especially to Yemen, but now we detect activity of Iran in Sudan and in Libya. Guess what? There are civil wars there, and wherever there is death and sorrow, you will see Iran. And one last, it looks like imaginary threat, but we are detecting also Iranian and Chinese cargo ships that actually can become launching pad for thousands of attack drones that can potentially swarm a beach of, say, Israel or New York or I don't know what, with a lot of suicide kamikaze drones and inflict horrible damage without anyone even seeing them coming. Those are, of course, potential threats, and whatever comes in the future, we'll deal with it, as we always do. But right now, many in Israel believe that it is time, and the conditions are right for normalization with the Arab states that now saw what Israel can do to its enemies. So in the next several weeks and months, I hope we're going to see some good news regarding ceasefire in Gaza and maybe even peace agreements with Arab states. Maybe also an uprising in Iran, but I cannot foresee I cannot see the future, as we say. Lauren, check if I have one more slide. Of course. The ball is in the Iranian side of the court now, and Israel is now expecting them to do their next move. So just remember that we won a war now, but it's part of a larger campaign. And stay hopeful, my friends. We got this for sure. Lauren, with that being said, let's move to our friend, Mighty Doug Hershey's, to give insights from his side. Thank you very much for listening. There he is.
Here I am. Well done, Amit. Well, everybody, I just wanted to just touch base on a few things this evening, and add a little forward thinking, and also just some information with some of the things that are coming out here with the war so quickly over. Already the world is remembering Gaza and remembering all of the slander and all of the awful things by the help of Candace Owens, if you've seen some of that, or Tucker Carlson. A friend of mine likes to call him Tucker Qatarlson because he's being funded by Qatar, some say. But there's been a lot of waves that those two have been making, saying things like that Israel today is not really offering the world anything, and it's not it's not connected to anything of history or the Bible. And so part of what I've been doing for the last several years, since October 7th, through my travel company Ezra Adventures, and I see some of you guys are on here, that have joined me. I've been bringing small groups to work with farmers that have been hit from the October 7th attacks. So last year I brought 6 different harvest aid teams, 3 to work on the Gaza border, 3 up in the Golan Heights, and just finished a group that was also doing cherries, picking cherries up in the Golan Heights about a day or 2 before the war began. So I've still in Israel. I have just been through the whole war experience in terms of the bomb shelter situation. But that's what Ezra Adventures has been doing, is bringing people to help and to get involved in very practical and tangible ways to bring support. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But if you can go to the next slide. My photo books, Israel Rising and Jerusalem Rising, are just documenting this restoration of Israel in their homeland, in our homeland here in this same place from biblical times and all through history, and documenting then and now photos. And so both of those have old photos of what the land looked like prior to 1948, and I'm going back with 2 different photographers to find the exact locations and try to line them up to show how much the land has revived under Israeli sovereignty, how much the cities have been rebuilt and restored. And so those are those 2 books are, between Ezra Adventures and the photo books and some other documenting work, is what has kind of landed me here in Israel for months and months at a time. But if we go to the next slide, just as a point of reference, when people say about why is Israel important today, it doesn't really matter. Israel's just like everything else, and we hear these large, so-called Christians or spiritual people in places of influence suggesting all sorts of things. There are, I want to just give you real briefly 3 historical anomalies that surround Israel, that show that Israel is something that is so unique that human history has just, there's just no equal to it. And really, this is just for when I have an hour and a half presentation. These are usually like 7 or 8 different ones, but some of the most significant ones historically, there are undeniable facts that there is something unique about this land and this people. And eventually, a intelligent and rational person is going to have to say, okay, something is different here, and what is it, and what does that even mean? But my point is that we are seeing, especially with what we just saw in the last 2 weeks, some extremely profound historical, life-changing, Middle East altering couple weeks in history. I think we're going to look back and look at what happened in the last 2 weeks as a significant turning point, in the same way that the 6-Day War was a significant turning point for Israel. I think the same thing is going to happen, and we'll compare those 2. But if we go to the next slide, the first thing is that there is no other people group in human history that has been forcibly removed from their homeland, thrown off, and then come back to the same piece of real estate for a few hundred years, and then again forcibly removed, the people scattered for thousands of years, to then come back to the exact same piece of real estate as a sovereign nation and as an identifiable and recognizable people as their ancestors that were thrown out years before. This is an anomaly in human history that has no comparison. It's never happened with any other people group or any other land. And when the Jewish people were out of this land, never in that time frame did Jerusalem or this land become a homeland for any other people, or did Jerusalem ever become a significant city or become a capital city in any other nation. And so even when we look back to the Ottomans, the 400 years prior to the end of World War I with the British, Jerusalem was a dump. It was there's census records, and I have in my photo books, there's census records talking about the population of Jerusalem of being 15,000 people, and the over 7,000 people of the majority were Jewish. And so if you can imagine Jerusalem today is well over 1 million with all of its suburbs, and continues to grow and grow and grow. If you can imagine less than 200 years, Jerusalem being a rundown dump in 1844, we have old photos of it. And it's like, it is just so dramatically changed. And there is no other city on earth, there is no other people group on earth that has had this type of experience where they've been completely removed from their primary cities, and these things have been kind of fallen into disrepair. And then for the exact same people group to come back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later to establish again a sovereign nation by the same name as it was 3,000 years ago. Amazing. It has no historical comparison. Let's go to the next slide. Probably one that's a little less common, but firmly established in statistics, is that no time in recorded history has any national population absorbed immigration that doubled its size in 3 years. Or just another way to say that is that there's no other nation on earth that has doubled its population within 3 years. So in 1948, around the time of the War of Independence, it was about 650,000 Jews that were living in Israel. 3 years later, in 1951, over 700,000 more immigrants arrived, more than doubling the population in 3 years. And what's amazing about that too is that during that time, of course, there's no internet, there's no email, there's no live news reporting in terms of flipping on the TV and seeing what's going on. When Jewish people around the world were suddenly hearing that we have a state and we're coming home, they're getting on boats. Some are coming from persecution, some are just hearing from the messengers of the ambassadors of the Jewish agency going to these distant locations saying, we have a state, it's time to come home. And people are flooding back to the land. This is something that the Jewish people for centuries and centuries and centuries have been praying for and looking for. And now, their children's great, however many great grandchildren have an opportunity to step into it. And people began coming and coming and coming. And so during that 3 years, if you can imagine, where do you put all of the people? There was the national government in its infancy was just surviving the War of Independence and just trying to get its feet on the ground, and literally thousands and thousands of people every day, unannounced, showing up on your shores saying, we're Jewish, we're home, we heard, here we are. And where do you put all these people? Where do you feed them? How do they have work? How do they, so really for the first, just that in and of itself, that Israel just didn't kind of crumble and fall apart, is just a profound international miracle. There is no other nation on earth that has ever experienced anything like that. And really, for the first 3 or 4 years, Israel's like tottering on the brink of humanitarian disaster and trying to get things established and building new communities, all while still defending from raiding bands of Arab militias that are still trying to get back on their feet after losing the war, and on and on and on. But this is when we talk about absorbing immigrants, there is no comparison through human history. So let's go to the next slide, and we want to talk a little bit about some of the miraculous wars. Now, some of you that are familiar with Israel know, of course, that the War of Independence, when the war begins in 1948, the British pull out. Israel has no planes. They have one tank. They've got a couple armored vehicles, and they've got some cannons that aren't even in the country yet that were purchased. World War II surplus that weren't even in the country yet because of the British embargo. And so at that time, Israel is outnumbered 4-1. That's 4 well-trained Arab soldiers to 1 immigrant kibbutz farmer, or militia. There's not enough guns for the people, and there's not enough ammunition for the guns. In Shimon Peres's one of his autobiographies, he writes about being in the room with David Ben-Gurion before the war, and one of his generals coming in and talking to him about the amount of ammunition that they have for the entire country wasn't even going to last a week. So on top of that, we know that probably 30 to 35, I've heard as much as 40% of the actual Jewish defenders were coming from other nations that didn't speak the language, were Holocaust survivors who had never held a weapon. I've actually interviewed some of them, and they've literally would get off the boat, and as immigrants are coming off the boat, there was somebody from the Israeli government, as people were getting off, saying, this one for kibbutz, army, kibbutz, army, kibbutz, army. And then, if you went to the army, you were showed how to hold a weapon. And some men that I've spoken to personally said within 2 days of getting off a boat, they had a rifle and they were defending Jerusalem. So how do you fight a war? How do you even fight a war when you don't have enough guns, you don't have enough ammunition for the guns, and at least 30% of your army doesn't even speak the same language? And you don't have any heavy weapons, and you're outnumbered, and so that's just the War of Independence. Just incredible military victories. In fact, it's reported that the West Point Trading Academy in the U.S., military academy, as well as the Kremlin and a lot of the Russian military training academies, do not study the wars of Israel because of how improbable the outcomes are. Normally, when you have way more people and way more guns and you have the high ground, you win. Unless, of course, for some reason, you're fighting Israel. So in the 6-Day War, it was a very similar situation. Now, I want to compare. You were seeing my list here. And I find this sort of stuff fascinating. And I speak about some of the miracles in Israeli military history. And for me, watching the news here, I was making mental check notes, meaning here, like I'm in Israel and I'm hearing the news and I'm learning, different things that are happening, and talking to guys like Amit, like what's really going on, and I'm learning these things along the way. And there is just these incredible parallels. I don't know if anybody else is talking about it. If they are, I would love to hear what they're putting together. I'm giving you a list of dramatic comparisons of the 6-Day War and what people are now calling the 12-Day War. At least Trump's calling it the 12-Day War. But initially, both of these wars had enemies that were calling for Israel's destruction on a global basis. That was happening in Egypt with Abdel Nasser, and yelling all through the Arab world. And of course, Iran's been saying that about Israel for years. Both situations, the enemies were amassing massive amounts of advanced weaponry. During the 6-Day War, it was a lot of, and actually, ironically, they both were coming from Russia, or the former Soviet Union was giving Egypt massive amounts of cutting-edge Russian technology that in tanks and armored vehicles and anti-tank weapons and all those types of things that were being amassed on the Israeli border in Egypt. And of course, we know that the same thing was happening with these ballistic missiles that that Amit was talking about. Both situations have enemy coalitions. In the 6-Day War, it was a coalition of Arab nations, and in this last round here with Iran, again, Amit mentioned all of the Hezbollah and the group in Iraq, and the Houthis and Hamas, and like all of these groups were intended to all fight together. Now, thankfully, it all sort of fell apart along the way. But number 4, they were vastly outnumbered. Most of the statistics I've seen regarding the 6-Day War were greater than even the War of Independence. Some say as many as outnumbered 5-1. And the ratings between how many Arab vehicles and airplanes versus Israeli tanks and planes were just way off kilter. And if you're familiar with some of the stories coming out of the 6-Day War of small bands of Israeli fighters taking out larger, overwhelming forces, we see some of that same type of thing within the aspect of Iran. We know that prior to Hezbollah attacking, one of the major concerns was that they had 120,000 rockets or missiles facing Israel from Hezbollah, and everyone was saying, when there's a war with Hezbollah in the north, there is just going to be, we need to expect major destruction of significant sites within Israel, and of course, same thing with Iran, and it was becoming larger and larger numbers in terms of outnumbering what Israel could handle. And of course, in both situations, they were preemptive strikes. And so in the Six-Day War, Israel puts over 80%, I think they held back 4 or 5 planes in Israel to defend Tel Aviv, but pretty much threw their entire Air Force, expecting large losses and expecting to, pretty heavy losses through the first wave. And the exact same thing that happened with Iran as well, was that there were preemptive strikes so that they can get the upper hand. And in both situations, both in the Six-Day War and this time, complete and utter shock. And some of the stories that are coming out about what happened with in Iran with the Mossad and setting up like fake telephone lines within the Air Force. Basically, they learned the patterns of the Iraqi Air Force, got them all together in one place, and then hit the place and completely wiped out the entire Air Force, the Iranian Air Force leadership, which completely stunned the country, and really kind of delayed their response for at least 24 hours. And something very similar happened with the initial attack during the Six-Day War as well, was that Israel planned 4 plane teams that at the exact same moment hit every single airfield in Egypt. They knew the exact time that the Egyptian pilots would take off and would land and do their morning sorties, and they would come back, and they struck it down to the moment when they knew that it was right about the time that the Egyptian pilots had returned, had just finished breakfast, and was about to take their morning tea. That's when the timing and the precision of the timing in the Six-Day War, we find that same type of incredible precision of hitting all of these locations, a lot of these, not only with the Air Force leaders and their bunker all taken out at once, but of course, many of the high command being killed in their beds. Just complete and utter surprise that just completely shocked the enemy. And of course, as a result, in the Six-Day War, within 3 hours, Israel had total and complete air superiority. I think it was really by the end of the day, in the 12-Day War, the same thing happened. It was just beyond what anybody had expected or anticipated. Was that the air forces were destroyed on the grounds in both wars, in Syria and also in Iran, with the Mossad working on the inside. All of the air defenses were down, all of the radars were down, and you can get online, like Amit was saying, you can get online and watch the gun cams from the 12-Day War of them blowing up planes and helicopters on the ground. And so complete air superiority, there was in both wars, there was a shock and of just complete overwhelming success. I think within the first 2 or 3 days, the things I was reading here locally was about just the Army saying, we just, in our wildest dreams, we would have never expected to have such, things to go so well. And when I heard that, it reminded me of quotes that I heard almost word for word of what the Israeli High Command was saying after, or really with the first couple of days of the Six-Day War. There were the parallels of the success are shocking. And even better was, lastly there, is that there were far less casualties in both wars than what was projected. What I was hearing, and again, you heard Amit talking about having refrigerator trucks expecting to stack bodies. What I was hearing on the Israeli side was that a best case scenario what they were hoping for was only about 400 casualties, with worst case scenario being 800 or 900 civilians being killed total. Instead of a minimum of 400, there were only 28. That's a shocking number when military leaders say this is what we can expect and this is what we can take out, and I think they're going to respond, and how are we going to deal with it? We're going to take some hits, we're going to take some losses. There's a very small chance that we're going to have any less than 400. 300 probably not, 200, 100 definitely not 100. 28. And so again, these can go on and on, but there is just some incredible parallels between the 6 Day and the 6 Day War, and how significant that shaped the region, as well as what's happening right now. And of course, towards the end of the 6 Day War, that then eventually led into peace agreements with Israel, because in this neighborhood, how you establish peace is by strength. And after what Israel did in the 6 Day War, what Israel has done just in the last 2 weeks, it was pretty amazing when Iran was calling for Hezbollah to get involved a couple weeks ago, and they were like, you know what, you guys are strong enough, you guys can handle it. In other words, we don't want any part of that. We don't want, especially after the pager operation, after we completely decimated stuff with Hezbollah. So why am I saying all that? Is that for some strange reason, when it comes down to the wars in Israel, there are some shocking, incredible, miraculous things that normally do not happen in the scope of warfare for normal nations. And I say normal meaning, just with just warfare in general. It's definitely different than Russia and Ukraine. It's definitely different than the U.S. and Afghanistan or Iraq. Just the level of ingenuity, the level of creativity, the level of effectiveness, and to completely overwhelm a different nation that is 10 times larger than your own. The comparisons go on and on. So we're hoping, Lord willing, that this continues to lead to the more peace with the neighbors, and a better time in the future in terms of Israel staying on top and keep bringing peace and safety to the region. So let's go to the next slide. So part of what I had an opportunity to do, and I'll wrap up with this, is just a couple nights ago, I had an opportunity through some of my mailing list with Ezra Adventures is to join a few others in doing a barbecue for the IDF. And we did for about 90 to 100 soldiers. And what I found was extremely grateful men, but many of them are tired and exhausted, and not just tired and exhausted, broken families, divorces, things going, just not what you would expect from maybe what we hear in the West about the warriors in Israel, and connecting it to biblical history and all that type of thing, is that many of them were saying, like, this barbecue from that this group from all over the world of Christians and Jews were bought over $1,500 worth of meat for soldiers, and they love them and they're praying for them and to encourage them. Some of them told me it was the nicest or kindest thing that they've experienced in the last 12 to 18 months. Why am I saying this? Is that if there's ever a time to get involved with the things that are happening in Israel, to be a blessing, to be an encouragement, to be involved, is to continue to learn with Amit and Lauren and others with We Walk Together, but also whether it's arranging tours with them or through me. And of course, this isn't a tour pitch, but my point is that there are opportunities to get involved, and there are tremendous needs here. And so whether you're learning, whether you're continuing to grow, at some point, I encourage you to take the next step to get involved financially, and even get involved to come and be a part of what's happening here, because there are really incredible, amazing things. So when people talk about Israel's not like the Israel in the Bible, and they're no different, and that they're just a bunch of this, that, and the other thing. The fact is that the truth is very different. The history is very different. There is something that is unique in this land, and it all surrounds the Jewish people. It all surrounds this land, and we want you to know not only what's going on here, but look at opportunities and ways to continue to be a part of what's happening here. So with that, I'll throw it back to Lauren.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Doug. I'm going to add Amit back in frame as well to close. That was actually fascinating, the parallels between the two wars. I don't think I've seen anyone make that comparison yet. Thank you for sharing and plugging ways to get involved. Obviously, in more normal times, a lot of these events and experiences will happen in person, be it a tour or an event. But in the meantime, you know where to find us online. Continue to stream with us and watch with us. We'll be doing more and more of these broadcasts, so please share with friends and family and those that want to be educated and get involved, because it truly, Amit, being literally on the front lines, is our lifeline to information. So it's so important that we host these conversations and make information accessible to the average person, and like Doug said, there's a lot of information out there that is really crowding the conversation in an unconstructive way. And so we have the opportunity to clarify, bring a clarified take based on in-person and on-the-ground observations, and try to make sense of what actually is going on. So, Amit, final word to you.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. Doug, thank you. Lauren, thank you very much. One last thing, except our webinars, we're also going to do some lecture tours. So if any of you wants to see any of us or our partner Nir, who is actually on the front line, this guy has superpowers, and at the age of 60, oh wait, the age is forbidden to say, but he's a well-experienced officer, and he just called me from Gaza, actually. So God save him and protect him. And if you guys want to see any of us coming to your community in America, I'm personally coming in September. Just make contact, and we'll be there. All right. Toda rabba. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you, and shalom.
Good night.
Good night.